Bozo, Catherine Deshnikas. Hi, my name is Catherine Yeager. I am Latina on my mom's side, and on my dad's side, I am a tribal enrolled member of Citizen Potawatomi Nation, homelands in the Great Lakes area, and of German descent. I was a secondary social studies and special education teacher for 8 years at HSD, and I'm now the secondary humanities teacher on special assignment. One of my responsibilities is to support the secondary level implementation of Senate Bill 13, tribal history, shared history.
Daka Day, She Daria Martin Gonse. Greetings, my name is Daria Martin Bigum. I am a tribal enrolled member of the Yavapai Apache Nation in Camp Verde, Arizona on my mother's side. And on my father's side, I'm Palawa Dene from Smith River, California. I grew up on the Rancheria, surrounded by my family and my community. I'm a product of Relocation Act and the residential boarding schools. I am my grandparents' wildest dream. And I am the education liaison for the Title VI Native American Alaska Native Education Program here at the Administrative Center. I have been in this role for 3 years, but none of these years have been typical. And so I'm so thankful for the direction and leadership of Deborah Giles, who set this in motion, as well as Travis Ryman and Olga Kuna, and other various PAC members who in the past led this group to where it is.
We would like to thank you for this opportunity to share space with you on the occupied traditional homelands of the Equality Indigenous people. As a child, I grew up in a school system that did not have a Title VI program or a Native PAC. My work with our Title VI program and our Native PAC has allowed me to no longer be ashamed of who I am. So wearing today traditional clothing. I'm here today presenting to you because our Native families' history, culture, and very being has time and again tried to be erased out of existence. But we're still here and relentlessly writing ourselves back in for future generations.
So I want to offer my experience as a Native student, an educator, and parent to help our school board and district staff to engage with our Native American and Indigenous communities. Understanding the essential elements of culture is the key to making connections with our community. And I see my job as a cultural broker for our families and staff. And I would love nothing more than to have our PAC here leading this presentation for our future board meetings, but this relationship is going at the speed of trust. And although we're making room for stronger connections to our Native families, there's still work that needs to be done. And so I just kind of want to give you just an overview of our PAC. So what makes this PAC a little bit different than other PACs is that we do have funding from federal programs, so grant money. And so with that, we do have to have a parent advisory committee in place. And so with that, they are the ones that kind of direct how we are going to spend the money that we are given from the federal government. And so right now, up to date, I just checked this last night, we have 113 students who are enrolled in our Title VI program. That means they have verified that they are from a tribal affiliation or community. And there's about 40 different tribes that are represented. So if we look at that, there's like about over 560 or 72 tribes. So we have about 40 of those tribes represented here in our schools. If we were to look at the numbers in Synergy, we have 33,704 students who identify as Native American and Alaska Native. Here, just to push that in Synergy. We have the highest tribal representation is Navajo, Grand Ron, and the Confederated Tribes of Celeste Indians. Those are the 3 highest numbers that we see in our school district. So in 2020, 100% of our seniors graduated. And just in the last month, we have welcomed on a new board. Hence why I am here doing this board presentation, because I didn't want to scare them. You guys aren't scary, but it takes, like, this is my first time actually meeting all of you in person, like unless it's not in the halls, right? So with that new board, we have John Mackey, who's from the Sioux tribe. We have Mindy Forrest, whose children are Native, and from the Pit River tribes. Claire Molina, who's from Paiute from Nevada. and Casey Parisian, whose husband is native from Montana. So that's what our board looks like right now. We meet regularly about every month, and we discuss educational school systems. I try to encourage them to dig and see who would they like to have come in. What are the resources they need to help support their students? And so we also look at what Native community services that we can have come in and share about what they can offer our families. Because we're, unfortunately, on the west side, there's not very many services that service our families. They tend to be in the Gresham, Portland area. But again, I'm trying to bridge that gap so that we can have families know where they can go to access resources, as well as reaching out to the local tribes for that help too. So we're working on that. Yeah, so I think one of the biggest things like that Catherine and I both and other staff members is we really try to help our families navigate this dual citizenship that they have, meaning they having to be in schools as well as, sometimes they need to access their tribal communities. So for some families, if it's scholarships or if it's programs with COVID relief, a lot of times we would have just the opportunity to connect them to those resources. So it means contacting their tribal enrollment or their education departments to ask for help, as well as other local agencies. So the Johnson O'Malley program, which is in downtown Portland. And I think, yeah.
So with all these data points we presented, one important thing to note is that many of our families are here far away from their homelands due to various policies, including but not limited to the Indian Removal Acts, residential boarding schools, relocation acts, and termination. Approximately 40,000 urban Native Americans and Alaskan Natives from more than 380 tribes and villages live in the Portland area, the 9th largest such community in the United States. While many of us come from different sovereign nations and villages, together we are relearning our traditional ways, culture, and language. So kind of wanted to share with you guys some celebrations over the last little bit. One thing we've been working with our Native families, other Native educators, and Alaskan Native families is an excellent spotlight project. So elevating Native voices. We've done a collection of modern day Natives curated by our district educators, our Native students, and our Native Parent Advisory Committee. So who do they see bringing excellence to our community? We've also been really working closely with professional developments with Confluence Project. A member of one of our parents is a big part of that project. So by the end of 2020, we'll have over 150 educators who have gone through the Confluence Project cohort trainings. The cohort trainings are between 4 to 5 hours. So cohorts learn directly from Indigenous workshop facilitators and have the opportunity to examine and walk through multiple tribal history, shared history lessons as a cohort and be more prepared to teach tribal history, shared history lessons in classrooms. We're going to continue offering training through the Confluence Project, and we've been working hard to eventually for us to actually be leading those trainings as well.
So again, another celebration I feel this year and in the just 3 years that I've been in this role is really just fostering those partnerships with our local Native communities and organizations. So what this looks like is just having the ability to reach out to the Confederated Tribes of Grand Ronde when we are needing curriculum that would help support our teachers on the Indigenous tribes here, as well as when we were going through the naming of Melody Ridge, the same thing, like looking to their cultural department, because again, if I'm not from here, I'm not, I don't feel like it's my place, even though I am Native, I can't represent the people that lived here. I think the best source is going back to them and asking how can they, partner, how can we work together at coming out with the accurate histories. And so that's something that I'm excited about. And again, we continue to build and foster that partnership, as well as the Confederated Tribes of the Select Indians. They offer a lot of online support for our seniors and juniors. And so I really try to, again, if I can, for our juniors and seniors, connect them to those resources, because again, it's culturally relevant. And they oftentimes bring in Native reps from the different universities to help guide the parents and the students through that process. And so those are just a few, as well as working with NARA, which is the Native American Rehabilitation Association. Again, out in Gresham, but they also had different funds this year to be able to help our students with re-engaging if they have left school to come back to school and to support them. So that in February, we'll be looking at doing some workshops for college career and readiness. The other thing that we're looking at with with them is helping us with cultural activities. So that's something, again, when we look at like these past policies, we also have to realize that with that happens, and I speak for myself in this, from my experience, is when you have a grandparent that was put into boarding school, the parent then does not learn sometimes those traditions, so then you're having to go back and try to find it. And so right now, that's what I feel like some of our families are there. So we have to go back and just kind of pull from what can we learn now? Like, and so there's a lot of cultural like experts here in the Portland area that can help us with that. So I tend to go source that stuff out because again, that's a piece that's missing in my education and my upbringing. So now I'm going back to the elders here in this community or the cultural consultants that I can go to and to help us and our families connect with their culture. And so NARA has always been a great partner in the past. Actually, this boardroom is where, or in this room, we would do all kinds of crafts together as families, but because of COVID, we haven't been able to meet. We actually will be meeting tomorrow in person at Quality Ridge for our parent meeting, short parent meeting, but just enjoying that space and being able to walk through. For some of our families, that will be the first time that they actually get to experience that space and the special like quotes that were picked out with them in mind, as well as with their input. So that's, again, just something that I'm looking forward to, and as well as what other partnerships that we can get. Like right now, just working again with Washington County has been a really great thing as well, like just helping our families engage with the county, and again, going to them and saying, what is it that we need here? We need more Native resources on this side of Portland. So I think that's one of the biggest celebrations that I can see, that it's just continuing to grow. As far as our PAC goes, we have seen book drives that were able to happen in the beginning of summertime. It's probably one of my favorite parts of this job is being able to go and purchase books that are written by Native authors with Native, families depicted in these books that are so accurate and beautiful. And so if you just, I'm over in Toasted Town 3, but I have a little display of books there. Those were just some of the books that we were able to purchase and get into families' hands. We had over 50 families come to that event to drive up, pick up some books, and go home and be able to have those in their libraries. And we try every year to get new books. So it's like, I'm hoping their libraries are getting more robust, but the other thing we were able to do is just again offer scholarships for Camp Invention, which is a STEM camp. And again, last year we had to do it all online. This year they got to go in person, and we were able to help students with that. We also, and when fall came in, we had school supplies, and that one we weren't necessarily doing a drive-through, but we had a lot of requests for school supplies, and we were very fortunate to get all those fulfilled, all those requests fulfilled. Again, we're having a new PAC parent, a parent advisory committee will be really great. I'm excited to really dig in and work with this group and see, because we're seeing younger, like these parents have younger grades of students. So that's exciting because we have the students that started off when I was actually a member in the PAC, they actually are graduating this year. Some of them will be. So we're seeing this like rebuild. That's what I see right now. So it's really trying to help these parents again understand how do these meetings work? How do what are the things that they need? So it's just kind of pulling out that information. So let's see. We have also have a part-time, so meaning just a couple hours a week that we can access a Native helper at one of our middle schools who is able to connect with the teachers to help look over the middle school students and our high school students. And we were able to pull some of that data out of like, how did they do this first period? And they're doing great. Like they are really doing good. So I'm really excited about that. Not very many emails will need to go out. We also are just, I think one of the biggest things that I see is, again, is just providing a space. Like it's been on Zoom and they've done great, but it's going to be exciting to just be able to come together like this, right? Like just being able to be together, have dinner together, and just get to be in each other's presence. I have families that are responding as well as staff too, because I think it's been hard to do these meetings online and not be able to make those connections. So those are just, again, some of what our PAC does. And, you know, looking forward, I think we just want to continue to see college and career readiness. We want to see increased cultural identity and Indigenous knowledge. And we want the support of HSD staff in increased awareness of Indigenous knowledge. And just continue to work on our collaborations with our local tribes.
I guess last but not least, we're reaching out to other school districts. It's been really nice. We have some Native educator affinity groups going around the state to connect with other people around the state that are implementing Senate Bill 13 and also what they're doing with their PACs and their Native communities. So just reaching out and creating a broader, stronger Native network so that we can better support our families.
So it's kind of great too. I forgot we're having an OMSI science night next month, and again reaching out because we have, you know, smaller groups. We also reached out to other school districts to kind of make our, again, to expand this network that we have, because some of our parents actually do have students in both school districts. So I said, okay, let's make this easy for them, but let's have fun doing this. So I'm really excited. Like I said, there's some great partnerships that are taking off.
Question? So 2 questions for you. First of all, Catherine, you mentioned the Confluence project, but could you just give a summary for everyone? Maybe people haven't heard of it or not as involved with it. So if you could just kind of share what that is. And then the second thing is, when you talk about the speed of trust, what does that look like, or how do we assist with that?
Thank you for those questions. I actually think they combine really well.
Okay.
So what the Confluence Project is doing, and I apologize, I'm like, their website is flashing in front of my eyes. But one of the members of the Confluence Project is to tell the stories of the Columbia River. You know, when I was in 4th grade, we were told this area was empty, right? But really, we were in like the hub of the Indigenous center here, right? The Columbia River, the salmon, and the people. And the Confluence Project's one of their goals is to tell that story, right? They do field trips, they do plays. And so working with the Confluence Project has allowed us to connect with other Indigenous educators to help educate our staff. It's a lot to try to do those ourselves, and I think so reaching out with Confluence Project has been really helpful. And I think one thing that Confluence Project helps is when we talk about building trust, is that there's a lot of knowledge that's not known about Indigenous people, about Native peoples. And because of that, sometimes those conversations when you're with a Native or Indigenous person or Alaska Native with someone who's not, there are things that have happened in the past that have made it difficult to engage on certain subjects or topics and to feel safe. You know, a lot has come out about residential boarding schools, and I think people are more aware now. So that trust in education and the education system. I know in my own tribe from the Great Lakes area that was moved to Oklahoma, Kansas, you know, children were taken, right, and taken to schools. So there's a lot of history there, and it only ended recently, 1996. So I think when we build that back, and what Confluence Project offers is in-depth look at Indigenous knowledge systems, essential understandings built around Oregon Senate Bill 13. So it allows educators to co-learn, right, and not just learn, but get to understand and ask questions in an environment. So that's where we've been able to support. Oh, I feel bad. I feel like I have their memory, like I know exactly, but I recommend looking it up and working with them too. Do you want to add to that?
Does this mean that And I don't mean for this to be controversial, but I'm just gonna say it. I was a little bit appalled with the Oregon Trail education and curriculum. And I was wondering, are you guys helping to, I don't know, fix it? Change it? Make it right? I don't know, there's something not quite right with it. Because your voice is missing from the entire project. And so I was just wondering, is that one of the things that you're just hoping to have some influence on or something?
Well, I do want to add, I grew up in Oregon, so I played the Oregon Trail game extensively. They did go back and actually redo it a few months ago and add Native Americans to play from that perspective. But in truth, what's been really nice is Senate Bill 13 actually has 4th grade, 8th grade, and 12th grade lessons that show a different perspective. Right now, they're mainly around Lewis and Clark. What's unique about Senate Bill 13 is it brings Native people into the present. We've been working at elementary schools, and literally a kid, I told them I was Native, and they're like, I thought you were all dead. And the kid meant no harm by that, right? But that's the narrative. And I think, so some of these lessons, they don't touch directly on the Oregon Trail, but what they do is they bring forth that these tribes are still here, that this place has people and had people. And so it's kind of that perspective. We are actually, I'm so excited to share this. Tomorrow, 25 4th grade teachers are going to start their cohort. We already have a bunch of 4th grade teachers, but my counterpart, Claudia Cruz, has been working really hard to work with those 4th grade teachers. And a bunch of them have already met, and now they're starting this cohort process. And that is one of the things, but using again that Senate Bill 13 curriculum, because that was created by the state of Oregon, it was created by the tribe. So we really want to acknowledge that work that went into it. And it's matching the state standards as well.
So what's nice too about that curriculum is it was 9 tribes, right? They have all had their input on it. So you will get their perspectives, all of those 9 tribes. And what's interesting is like when you go into some of the like the Title VI, like knowing the history of this, like there have been some of these people who have been in the same position I have been and have been advocating for this curriculum for over 25 years. And you're just now seeing it, right? And now we have it. And now it's like to have this ability to train our 4th grade teachers now, like it's going to change. I mean, I was fortunate to be able to speak in a senior class last spring and even to ask them a question of what is a Native American and where do they live, and seeing the responses. Like we have, when I saw it, I'm like, we have work to do, right? Because we have, like when I go into a 1st grade class now though, I see that there is change happening already. Like our teachers are there, they're willing to have these, like, I don't want to say hard conversations, but yet come and give a different perspective and really help our students engage in this. And so it's exciting. I was really hopeful because going into Native American Heritage Month, it's a big month. It's a big month. It's a lot of land acknowledgements and a lot of proclamations that have to be read and stories that need to be told. But again, if we can look even past this month and look at like this is going to be something that's going to be woven in through all of their education from September to June. I mean, that's my goal. That's my hope.
I think one of the things that you mentioned earlier was talking about how creating space to work on that trust, and that you're going to the new elementary school, which we got to do a tour right before school started. And one of the things that I was wondering as part of that trust building and the history behind the education and the role that it played for different communities, that this idea of celebrating the culture and staying and kind of moving away from this assimilation goal that was always kind of the goal behind some of those schools, the education system. And so thinking about that school in North Plains and our asset that we have as a district, which is our buildings, and those are the spaces that we can utilize to celebrate culture and to create that space. I'm wondering what can we do in that way so that it's not just one school where you can see those things, but that is in other places, that different buildings where students are walking in the halls. And my kids went to W. Henry and they have a beautiful mural all the time. And depending on what school community you happen to go to, some building administrators are just, have done a lot of work to make those spaces really nurturing of culture and diversity. So I'm just wondering that might be something for us to think about. How can we kind of nurture that in other ways and build that trust that they can see themselves in all these spaces?
I think one thing that we can do, and this is with the Senate Bill 13 curriculum, I think we have to position ourselves as co-learners. I'm citizen Potawatomi, but I have so much to learn about my own culture because of assimilation in the past, right? And I think sometimes you get so nervous in wanting to celebrate and wanting to support that we're so scared to make a mistake or not know. And so one thing that this training does is it positions you as a co-learner. And I think what makes certain spaces and buildings is that if the people in that building, right, the people make the building, right, have done that learning, that co-learning. We recently went into an elementary school where most of the teachers have done that co-learning. A lot of the educators, they've been really invested. And I loved it. She had her note cards with vocab for like powwow, regalia, and the first graders, they raised it, all first graders raised their hand, but they knew it. They knew, and right, and so I think part of what to have these buildings for, particularly our Native Pac and families, is that co-learning has to take place from the people that make that building, right? And I think that's what's so powerful is then, as a Native person walking into that building, that space becomes really special and caring because the people in that space, they know my story, right? They know the future, and I think that's a big step moving forward. It's not necessarily the building itself; it's the building ready the people in the building to be co-learners and learn together. Thank you for your question.
Thank you guys so much for coming.
Thank you, guys.
Glad you were here.
Thank you for having us.
Our next agenda item is to discuss the appointment of the budget committee, and Michelle, oh, there you go. Usual spot, I guess I should have guessed. Have some information for us, right?
Yeah, thank you. We haven't had the boardroom training. Do I need the mic, Jordan?
Not for the owl.
Okay. And I believe Rosie provided a Zoom link for our budget committee applicants. We invited them to come give a quick introduction of themselves here tonight. You've had a link to their applications in your board packet, so hopefully you had a chance to look at those. Just a little bit of background, we have 3 vacant positions. Position 4 and 5, they both are regular term positions and they expire June 30th, 2024. We have position 7, which was an interim vacancy, and that expires June 30th, 2022. So it's kind of a shorter period. About the positions, position 4 was held by Nina Carlson, and she did not reapply. Thank you very much for her service. Christine Adams Wanneberg was an interim appointment. She completed a shorter term, but she has reapplied. And then we have Kevin Murphy, who we ended up bringing on to our HSP family team, and so that vacated his position. Our applicants, let's see, I see they're all online and ready to go. So thank you guys for joining us, and I'd like to just introduce you, and if you can turn on your mic, give a quick interest statement about this position. Go ahead and start with Sarah Parsons. Sarah?
Hello. I'm Sarah Parsons. I'm a lifetime Oregonian and South Hillsboro resident. I have a 3rd grader at Hillsboro Online Academy and a 4th grader at Rosedale. I'm an MBA and PMP with almost 20 years experience in strategic operations and management consulting, where I've managed both multi-million-dollar budgets and large stakeholder groups with often competing priorities. I've seen firsthand how resourcing decisions and systemic constraints affect both children and school staff, and I'd be honored to help ensure continued positive outcome in the Hillsboro School District. Thank you.
Wonderful, Sarah, thank you. Alexander Flores.
Hi, good evening. Thank you for having me. I appreciate everybody, the board, and everybody's time here today. Just want to say real quick that I have had three kids graduate from HSD, and I have two younger kids, 6 and 3. And currently, I serve on the budget committee for Northwest ESD. And one of the ways that I like to learn and I enjoy learning is by asking questions. And I think one of the biggest things that I would like to focus on too moving forward is how do we continue to serve our disadvantaged kids and continue to support the growth of our school district as we continue to see our city develop into this bigger city. So that's one of a couple of things that I would like to bring to the table, and I would enjoy and appreciate the time. Thank you very much for everything you do.
Thank you, Alexander. Next, we have Christine Adams Wanberg. Again, she's an incumbent.
Hi, Board of Directors. How are you? Good evening. Thanks so much for having me here. I just wanted to speak just a little bit. So I'm a parent of 3 children. I'm in the Century Feeder Group. One of those children is on an IEP. I had the good fortune to serve in a role during your last budget session where I was fulfilling a term for somebody who had basically moved out of district and had a really good experience just trying to figure out the budget. I'm still trying to figure out state funding and everything. I'm sure everybody is. But I felt really fortunate to be able to serve HSD just in a different way. I've been a volunteer in the classroom. I have helped in various things with the schools that my children attend, but I really feel fortunate and would like to continue with that opportunity to serve in this particular different way. I've done budgets and auditing for over 25 years. I've lived in the school district, or actually Washington County, for 25 years, and would love to serve in this particular capacity and helping the board with its budget deliberations and asking questions. So thanks so much for the opportunity to be here and just give a 30-second presentation.
Thank you, Christine, for your service before and for reapplying. Directors, I think you should have access to a Google form in your folder. And if you can go ahead and complete that form, there's questions. One is to identify the 3 appointees. And the second is to identify the appointee that you would recommend for position 7, which again is abbreviated because it's an interim vacancy. If you can take a moment to complete that form, then we will tally up those responses.
Everybody have it in their email? 11 months kind of crowded. 11:52
It's in
this
the
morning.
packet.
Oh, it's in fact, okay.
But I didn't want to not have them actually appointed.
You said 3?
Yes, there's 3 applicants and there's 3 positions available. So that's the first step, is to make sure that they are appointed by the majority. And the second step is to identify the interim vacancy appointment.
If all 3 with that full roster.
Yes, yes. We're working on it. I've got 4 out of 7.
I asked, do we have to appoint all 3, and I still don't know the answer.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We have
Yes.
3 vacancies.
I understand that. That was not my question. Can I choose 2 is my question.
Yes, that is your choice. Six out of 7, and
Director Martinez is not with us tonight.
She's not with us.
Yes.
Okay. Chair Watson, would you like me to read them aloud or?
Yeah,
provide them
sure.
to you? All right, we have 6 votes for Sarah Parsons. We have 5 votes for Alexander Flores. In appointment, we have Christine Adams Lundberg, 6 votes. And we have a recommendation of Alexander Flores for position 7, that abbreviated position. And so we'll bring that information forward at the regular session and be able to vote on that appointment. Thank you again for you guys going through the applications, and I am looking forward to working with our new members.
All right. Thank you. Thank you all for joining us. I appreciate your interest in serving. I'm glad you'll all be serving on the budget committee.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
All right, our next item is more of a work session item, discussion of the proclamations and start there. So on page 7 of the packet, you can saw a little history. We convened a board committee maybe 2 years ago,
Couple years ago.
yeah, maybe a little bit. So this is nothing more than sort of checking our work, making sure that this continues to align with the kinds of proclamations and things we want to draw attention to as a board. I think if the list is fine, I think we're fine. If people want to revisit and maybe form another committee to determine which kinds of proclamations we should be making, we should have that discussion. So basically, there's just an opportunity for people to weigh in. So we have new members since the last time we did this. So this on page 7, you'll see what the committee suggested a couple of years ago, maybe a little more than 2 years ago, and what the board approved as the proclamations we'll make over the course of a calendar. Any discussion?
So how do we determine, or how was it determined, what would be a week, what would be a month, what would be the celebrated as a day?
I think those are like suggested by the topics or organizations, if I had to guess, right? Like I think American Education Week has always been American Education Week, so we pick the week.
We basically follow the national recommendation or national trend.
Any other questions? Does anybody want to revisit this list or be good? The other thing I wanted to bring up was the land acknowledgement. I think the first time I saw it was the Oregon School Board Convention, the last time it was in person. And then we kind of adopted it while we were still in person, maybe, and then continued it. Did it come later? Did it come during COVID time? Yeah. But we never really discussed it. We never really, it feels a little long. I think there's I think Director Lopez kind of and worked with President Scott to just sort of come up with it. And I sort of, we never discussed it at a board, it just kind of showed up and was there. So I thought we'd have a little, give people the opportunity to discuss it if they like.
My question would be, did we talk to indigenous leaders of the local tribes we mentioned, or our indigenous and Native American pack when we're writing this? And would it be worth maybe bringing it up with them and seeing how they feel about it? So that they're the best voice to represent Native American indigenous interests in our school district.
Yeah, having not participated, maybe I could give some perspective, but yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that the thing that we need to do, especially how we have the presentation today, is revisit with the fact that we have a new leadership. So maybe this would be a great project for them to, maybe the board wants to revisit this document and see if they're interested in helping us with this. And I know that we talked to Grand Rod last time with Hawaii. So I don't know, and I think it's a process to get on there.
Yeah,
What to do. So that might be
Yeah, just my sort of general thoughts is I feel like it's something we should be doing, but it kind of just showed up. We didn't really discuss it, so just giving people opportunity to discuss it. So yeah. Yeah, working to make sure that those voices are heard in the acknowledgement would probably be a good idea.
Like we talked about, I'm not sure we need a vote, but I would love to have a working group either with the captain or with the tribe, so that we can have an appropriate acknowledgement. I think this is an awesome attempt at our intent, but we need to confirm that our impact has been the same. If our intent does not equal our impact, then we shift and we change uphold it. So I'm not sure there's a vote there, but I would love to work with an indigenous tribe and the pack to see if we can make sure that our intent does equal our impact. And go from there.
So occasionally we just do sort of a head nod thing, like, so if people think this is the kind of thing we should be working on and or like continue having a land acknowledgement at the outset of the meeting and maybe bring some other voices in and try to figure out what we should be saying. Feel good about that sort of approach? All right. I'll try to shape a little bit what would that could mean and come back to it.
I think there's like a minor comment earlier, I feel like, it might seem a little bit long. I think it's okay to have it a little bit longer, so we can like, rightfully like honor, like, the natives that, like, whose land that we are on. So I think it's okay to make it longer, even if it does wind up seeming wordy. I think it's important to make sure we're not cutting out anything, or leaving behind anything. I think it would tie back into like talking to the pack. I think that if there's anything the pack thinks is really important to be included, then we should include it, even if it makes it feel long to us, because they're the people that we need to be listening to on this, not our comfort or our push to get it over with faster. If we want to do this, we want to do it right, and that means letting it take however much time it's going to take.
Anything else? All right. Our next item is a presentation from our conservation, well, an introduction to our conservation. I think also presentation on the work that's been done.
School board, I wanted to introduce Maya Hawking, our resource conservation manager. We've had our resource conservation management program since about 2015, 2016. Maya is the third person to serve in this role. Just a little history on how it came to be is we got to the point where we were one of the largest school districts around that didn't have somebody managing our resource conservation. And what that means to a district is mainly that we're all concerned about is not being able to manage our resources and utility costs by managing how our buildings operate. So we brought a resource conservation manager on at that time to get the program started. And now Maya is in charge of that. We haven't had our resource conservation manager come in update the board on the program or what this position does for quite a while. So I'm going to turn it over to Maya. She's been with the district quite a while, had kids go through our school, so she's very familiar with how we operate, and was in the facilities department prior to being in this role. So Maya's going to go over some slides, and then we'll have some time for questions. And I'm going to turn it over to Maya. Thank you.
All right. I take your talking stick.
Yeah.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for giving me some time on the agenda today. I really appreciate it. I haven't attended a board meeting in quite this format before since pre-COVID. So, Rose, do you want me to just give you some sort of...
You'll let Sierra know when this.
Okay. All right. As Casey said, I've been in this role for 3 years, going in 4. I have been with the facilities department for quite a while, and before that, I was a secretary at Potama Elementary. So I've been here for a while. Today, we're just going to get a really quick snapshot of what this role is and what we do to try to conserve our resources. So I look forward to your questions at the end, and hopefully I'll have the A to go with them. Okay. So at the top of the page here is really a cut and paste phrase from our job description, our HSD job description of what this role is, the mission of this role, and that is to develop, implement, monitor, and evaluate the district's resource conservation program and optimize energy consumption and reduce utility consumption. So that is quite a mouthful. It goes with the title, but the key words in there is optimize energy consumption and reduce utility consumption. So we want to save the district money and be a good steward to our planet. So the little quote at the bottom is one that I put in there because conservation is a word to be examined. It's about managing consumption to protect. And to me, that's kind of a key word here. Valuable resources in order to maintain capacity today and in our future. So I think that's an important phrase to remember when we're trying to conserve our resources. Next. So this list should look fairly familiar. I guess I could look over there, that'd be easier. Because anybody here, anybody that owns a home, this list of precious resources looks very similar. The top of the list, it's in descending order of largest utility, and that is energy, which is electric and heating fuel or natural gas. Water, food and property are precious resources, and our utility for that is solid waste and materials management. And at the very bottom there, it says human. And it's maybe you don't think that human belongs on this list, but I'd like everybody to just kind of ponder that and how that's connected to all these utilities. Over to the right is data that I took from a presentation about the growing costs of operations or the growing costs of utilities. And it is changing. This was actually taken from 2018-19 pre-pandemic because COVID, as we know, it's just put a wrench into all the gears. So while electricity is by far our biggest energy utility or our biggest utility, the rate increase is relatively small in comparison to the others. Natural gas, again, the net is about 4% every year increase at this point. It fluctuates a lot. Water and waste and materials management, if anybody is keeping track, those are the two that we need to watch because you can see the rate increases annually are significantly higher than the other two. And while the overall cost of those is not anywhere near the electricity, the rate increases will just keep continuing. And then at the bottom, just a little food for thought. How much does maintenance employee turnover cost the district? And how does that play into utilities? So that's kind of a snapshot of our utilities. And here's another utility breakdown. And this is how it hits our utility budget. Electricity is approximately 49% of the utility budget, at least according to the report that I ran in 2018-19. Water is climbing at 34%. Heating fuel is pretty stable, around 11. And then the last three are part of waste and materials management. And it's a minor or the smallest percentage, but like I said, it's continuing to grow. And if you look at this table, our largest contributing factor for energy consumption is our HVAC systems. So we're gonna get back to that because I have an electrical HVAC system example. But first I want to throw a couple of terms out just because these are terms that we use in resource conservation. And that's cost savings versus cost avoidance. What is the difference and why does it matter? So this is an overview of the two terms and how they're connected to resource conservation. They really are two peas in the same pod. They might be used interchangeably here and there, but they really are a little bit different. So cost savings is your straight benefits from what you receive today for using less. If you drive less, you pay less. If you use less energy, you pay less on your bill. Cost avoidance is the bonus. If you use less, you're using your equipment less, so you're avoiding incurring future costs associated with that consumption. And good news, it keeps going, it keeps getting better. So sustainability and resiliency is built upon the cost savings, cost avoidance, and then greenhouse gas reduction helps everybody. Oh boy, this slide is full of words. So this is diving a little deeper into the cost savings versus cost avoidance and kind of driving home the concepts. So what I've got here is our calculable or our hard savings on the left, and then our ancillary or cost avoidance on the right. So for example, if we reduce consumption and waste, we reduce utility costs. That's something we can calculate. If we avoid spending unnecessarily by right-sizing equipment, we optimize the value of our investment. Again, something that you can pretty easily quantify. If we monitor and manage our usage, then we could receive incentives. So we could even add more money. And then if we retain HSD technicians, we avoid supplemental labor. So those things are fairly easy to calculate. If we do those things, we can also reallocate that money that we saved to better our systems or reallocate it to a different part of our district. We can extend the life of our equipment, improve occupant comfort, and increase resiliency. And we also reduce a burden on an already tired labor pool. And another example of the same terms. So this one is a focus on energy usage. And really this is more of a visual. So the pyramid, when we talk about energy or resource conservation, a lot of times our focus is on those cost savings, which it should be. But the good news is that it just keeps getting bigger. So it's not just the cost savings, but it's the rest that comes with it. And these are kind of a repetitive statements from the previous slide. The bigger bubble at the bottom, the resource retention, that's where we're building our resiliency, which is going to be very important to mitigate catastrophic incidences. So so how do we do this? Do we just stop turning the lights on? That's probably not going to make a lot of people happy. So here's some cost avoidance strategies. I spent a lot of time with our HVAC systems and scheduling the time frame that they are operating. So at the very top of the list, by managing system schedules, we reduce wasteful energy usage. There's no reason to run an HVAC system if we don't have people that are going to enjoy the comfort of that. Preventative maintenance plan. If we have a good plan, it maintains the equipment health. Trending data, I also spend a lot of time with the data, and we can address deficiencies before they become big issues. If we look at projects through a conservation lens, then we can right-size equipment with controllability. Establishing operations and maintenance standards helps standardize best practices in human behavior. The strategic energy management is a program that we've enrolled in, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. But that increases the value to HSD, offers incentives, and helps Hillsboro as a community. And at the end, we have value-added service contracts that just brings more value to the dollars we've spent. So this is a fictitious data table here. But just to give you an example, I said we'd come back to electric utility, HVAC only. This is an example of how managing our HVAC schedules can really hit the bottom line, which is literally the bottom line down there. In the colored table, let's just say we've got a week's worth of HVAC. 15 hours a day, we're just gonna call it good, schedule it for 15 hours a day. Well, if we manage that and we know that, hey, we don't have anybody here on Saturday and Sunday, why are we running the HVAC? Or maybe our schedules are not quite that long, so why don't we scale them back a little bit? So between the brown and the yellow there, we've shaved off 45 hours in that 1 week of HVAC operations. Which down at the bottom, if you take those numbers across the district, you're looking at a difference between $700,000 and $400,000 just by managing an HVAC system across the district. So that's kind of a lot of money, and that's what I spent a lot of time doing. So these again are not real numbers that we use here, but it paints the same type of picture. Likewise, if we have a seasonal situation or a shutdown like summer, it doesn't go down to zero. That just doesn't happen. But we can cut it back significantly and save even more money. So those are some strategies that we do have in place now. Of course, with the pandemic, it's a little changed, but still the same concept. We're going to skip this purple one. Thanks. I have a substitute purple page because I thought of better things to say. So I'm just about done with my presentation. I could talk about numbers and I can talk about strategies and all that and bore you to tears. But the first and most important part of this is awareness. Energy and resources are at our fingertips, and it's really hard to remember that they're precious. So the first step of trying to implement strategies is to acknowledge that the resources are precious and they're not infinite, that every little step helps. We need to build a team of champions, which we do through our green teams and youth groups and our buildings. Set goals and roles, and then adopt and transform our best practices into standards. So this is my what are we doing? So what is HSD doing in terms of programming for resource conservation? Well, we're doing quite a lot of things. So the strategic energy management, we've got 12 buildings that are enrolled in this program, and we monitor monthly usage in these programs, and we do audits and trends, and we kind of dissect the usage and try to find where we can cut those back. And just of that actions alone helps the district save
resources. But this program also offers incentives if you hit benchmarks. So we also get bonus money for having reached goals. There's green school certifications, which we have 7 right now. My goal is to try to beat that up. We have green building opportunities such as solar, which is also listed on there. The Energy Star program, which we have 27 of our buildings that have met Energy Star certification, which is a program that's designed by the EPA for building performance. And what are we looking forward to? Well, hopefully we have some food waste management programs, district surplus program, electric bus fleets, and I'd really like to get some more youth-led energy champion groups. And that is my presentation. I know you all are beaming with questions.
Question? I actually do talk. Go ahead. My question, forgive me, but you didn't mention the impact of COVID, and I need to be specific. I just want to know more information.
Yeah.
We've had the option to possibly have more filters, or 13, 15, depending on how the HVAC system is working. And I'm looking to understand what the impact of additional purifiers and the HVAC system has been on our buildings. Now, granted, we went 16, 14 months with nobody in the building, which was probably nice and we saved some money. But now we're dealing with reality, people back in, we've got more need, probably more energy to function some of these. So I'm wondering what the true impact of that is right now, because that's real.
That is very real.
Well, I would start this a little bit, and then Maya is the expert, but we do know that by upgrading the MERV rate in our filters, it does make all of our building systems work harder. And so, because it's pushing more air through a more filtered space, so all of our systems not only are working harder, but they're working longer based on our COVID protocol. We've tried and are doing a really good job of making sure that our systems are running and maintained so we don't have any failures. But this certainly, those systems are going to need to be maintained more as we come out of COVID to make sure that everything's working well and with our filters. I think the other part too is, and I'm sure has a percentage on this, but our biggest expenditure, one of our biggest expenditures is plug load. So when you plug in something into a wall outlet, whether that be fans, refrigerators, now with air purifiers, that's a plug load. And if those are running, that's going to automatically increase the amount of energy we're consuming and then increasing our budget. I think we spend our utility budget about $4.5 million a year. Is that about right? $4.5, $5 million a year, just so you can get a scope of what our utility budget is in our district. So it's not a small number. So we will be seeing that. I think the other thing to keep in mind also on the trends of our utility consumption is, with our great work in the 2017 bond program, we have added a huge amount of HVAC systems by adding air conditioning to all these buildings, to upgrading our HVAC equipment, by adding square footage to the district. So I think Maya will tell you that we're aware of it. We don't really know exactly what a real balance of utility consumption is, because we haven't really functioned in a normal, what we consider a normal time period since about the start of the bond for that reason, and then COVID. Did that answer most of your question out?
Well, yes, meaning the bill is going to go up.
Yes.
And we need to be prepared. I think we as a district need to be prepared for the bill to go up just because of the consumption, the nature of the consumption. And That's what I was getting at.
Yeah,
It's nice to have this idea, but COVID has asked us to look at the world differently. And to look, and this is one of the things that we're gonna be hit probably pretty hard. And it's not gonna go away anytime soon.
I think that's one of the most important roles of the resource conservation manager. I could imagine if we didn't have this program going and we were just running our system without monitoring, that our costs would be, much higher.
yeah, March 2020, when we shut it all down, and I just mean that figuratively, we had some months where I just trended it for our energy team meeting, which is another thing I didn't have on my list, go figure. But we started building some energy credit, I would say, because we really scaled back our schedules for our HVAC and shut our buildings down, and we closed them down properly. And then we went through a good several, almost a year, but then things started to come back up again. And so now we're higher than we should be, but we are also managing it. We're not there. Everything's not just wide open either. So, large spaces that don't have the need to be on for a long period of time, those are scaled back and focus on the classrooms and the areas where we have occupancy. So,
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Yeah, two quick questions. I hope, and I'm not sure you're able to answer it. Maybe Michelle can answer it, but back on slide 4, the bottom 2 lines, that cleanup disposal and hazmat disposal that were not part of the budget. So how is that funded, or how is that dealt with?
Very good question. Nice to pick that up. I skated right over that. So they're not considered part of our, I would say, our utility budget, so our utility codes. But we do pay for those out of the maintenance. It's part of our maintenance budget. And it's not very routine at this point because hazardous material is not it's not like a monthly service cost. It just depends on what we have to dispose of.
And then the second question is just a definition for slide 6. It had increased resiliency. So what is that? What do you mean by that?
Great question. Increased resiliency. So when we have machinery that is not well maintained and we haven't used resources wisely, then when we have an impact, for example, the fires that we had a couple summers ago, it really puts a test to our systems. So, and we don't know it's coming. So we have to be able to react. And if we can better prepare and ground our systems and our people so that we're ready for whatever comes, it builds our resiliency so that we're not having to face a catastrophic event with few resources to battle it, I guess, if you want to say that.
All right, thank you.
Questions? Thanks for the presentation. Thanks, man.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Last item for our work session is George's going to give us an update on the technology in the boardroom downstairs.
Yeah, I can do it real quick here. So we had a number of things that we added in the region there that we added additional speakers into the room and replace those to make it louder. You'll remember we had lots of complaints when we would have, especially lots of people in the room. Don't have as many in there normally now. But the people had trouble hearing the board because it wasn't, especially the projectors were running, so we added speakers. Of course, coming back to hybrid, we added the camera and those pieces and updated the audio system so that we could feed the in-room audio to the computer system because we didn't have that capability before. And then added some new laptops and other equipment to make this sort of hybrid system work. We are adding a few more things and it's taken a little longer than I hoped. Unfortunately, the vendor we had lined up to do that work and order that equipment ended up deciding not to sign our COVID vaccine mandate waiver. And so we sort of had to start that process over. And they've been the vendor who's most, for years, sort of supported all the equipment in that room. So we've been sort of getting things installed ourselves since then, but we do have a vendor lined up to install those additional items. Our biggest issues that have been down there, and this room's working fairly well with the owl. Biggest thing in here is to make sure you're speaking actually at the owl, because that's where our mic is. So if you're presenting at whatever screen's better for you to look at, project your voice at the owl. Down in the other room, though, we are having quite a bit of audio issues, and it's really more about being close enough to the mics. So that's why I wanted to have this here. And just when we're talking about being close to the mic, especially these mics are made to only pick up very close around them because they're made for a large room. And so with masks on especially, it makes it even worse. So you almost have to have your mask up against the mic for these to pick you up in that room. If you are not that close, the people online cannot hear you, and your voice is not getting on the recording. And so people go back and listen to those. We're having lots of audio gaps in there, and that's just because we're not close enough to the mic. And probably the biggest issue with that is you naturally want to speak to one another, or I want to respond to Mark. And as soon as I turn my head away from the mic, it's not picking me up anymore. And so what you're gonna have to do is either one, fight that urge and speak at the mic, or pick up the mic and move it with you. You can do either, they're on cords, but that's the biggest thing is get it right up against your mask and then also, or under shield to make sure that it's actually picking you up. We are still adding some things to the system. Hope to have that all done either by our next meeting or at the January meeting is probably more likely, but we'll get to those. And the biggest piece of that is getting a mixer added so we can adjust each mic specifically to you, because everybody speaks a little differently at different volumes. And that'll allow us to adjust it. Right now, we can adjust the whole room up or down. And that, of course, causes some problems with the speakers and that.
I don't know about you all, but I've heard it from many community members that they can't hear us all. So it's a common refrain. So yes, please get a minute. Question.
Is it not possible or feasible or effective to get new mics that are a little bit more wider in their bubble of pickup?
Oh, we are getting new mics that should be better and have longer necks on them to help you get closer to them and make it not quite as awkward as well. And so hopefully that will make that better. It's just that balance to, once we get back to hopefully a little more people actually being in person in the meeting, that it's not picking up that general audience noise as well too. So it's just finding that balance as we try to get both the in-room meeting stuff to work along with it all getting piped online as well.
Just never had a complaint about people not being able to hear me. I get other complaints about you can hear me too much, but that's like new for me.
And then part of the new order is the microphone.
So you're never heard before.
Any other questions? All right, we will adjourn the work session. I will see you all downstairs. Comments aimed at the state and federally protected classes shall be prohibited. Anger, rudeness, ridicule, obscene or profane language, impatience, lack of respect for others, and personal attacks are not acceptable behavior. Demonstrations in support or opposition of a speaker or an idea are not permitted. The board thanks all their visitors for their presence and appreciates the input of community members. And just a reminder for us, this is not a question and answer session. It's our turn to listen to the concerns and opinions of the community. So, Beth, who do we have for? And so microphone up there. We usually use the podium for those of you who may not have done this before. Who's first?
Yes, first we will welcome Zane Schnur.
Zane. Thank you, Zane.
Good evening. It is my pleasure to be here at the Hillsboro School District Board meeting. I go to Liberty High School and my name is Zane Schnorr. Thank you. As some may know, many students in HSD have severe allergies, and those can include nut allergies. I am one of those people. I'm one of those students with a severe nut allergy. I also have asthma. Those go hand in hand. It is my personal opinion that not enough is being done to provide a safe and healthy learning environment to students at the difficulties at ALHS include but are not limited to PB&Js being served for breakfast and lunch. This has been reduced to only some days of the week, and this is bothersome for those with airborne peanut allergies. Another concern is students bringing peanut-related or peanut-containing foods into classrooms. Thank you. And another one is I cannot eat in the commons or the lunchroom at Liberty due to my airborne allergy. So I am basically forced to eat somewhere else. I cannot use certain bathrooms due to smoking and vaping in those bathrooms, which is not permitted by school rules, but it still happens. I've also had a difficulty at a summer job with HSD Migrant Student Summer Program where I was exposed to large amounts of peanut butter. And I did have a reaction, and this does worry me to this day. What have I done? I have taken up talking with the school counselors and administration, and I plan on speaking with the principal in following days about my concerns and my wishes for change. I've been working with them to draw up a health management plan for me and hopefully for other students in the future. What has currently been done for this situation? One peanut-free table has been set up in the commons or the lunchroom. However, I cannot sit at it as I repeat due to my airborne peanut allergy. I feel like this is not enough, and some things that I feel that need to be done is greater awareness to both students, staff, and admin, and also the district, that the effects of these allergies definitely impede the learning environment of certain students. And I believe there should be greater staff training for uses of EpiPens and other medical devices. At Liberty, currently, we have approximately 35 staff out of our many who are trained to use an EpiPen, and that is a little concerning. And the final thing that I would have is holding other students accountable for safety and the health of all students, including themselves. In conclusion, it has taken a lot of time and effort to get this far, and I'm so thankful for those who have supported me, including my school counselor. I hope to help not only me, but also others, especially those with allergies and asthma. And I hope that this brings about lasting change, not only for me, again, but for other students, especially since I leave high school next year. Thank you.
Thank you, Zane. Next up is Devlin Cannell.
Welcome back, Devlin.
Okay. Sorry. Hello, members of the board. It's really good to be back. It's definitely a little bit different being on this side of the podium. And that's, well, the reason why I'm here today is because I have some very pressing safety concerns at Liberty High School. More recently, there has been, honestly, I've been going to Liberty for 4 years, and this is probably there have been numerous safety incidents, which is honestly unprecedented as we're returning back to school from the, COVID. More recently, in the past 2 weeks, there have been at least 4 fights, and those are the ones that I have seen at least video recorded and documented. More recently, during a fundraiser done by Mecha, which for those of you who don't know is our, Latinx student organization, a student hung a Trump banner and proceeded to call students racial slurs, which I will not be repeating here for obvious reasons, and students have been vaping and smoking in the bathrooms in at least we have 2 of our bathrooms that are completely unusable at this point and are boarded up with plywood because of the destruction that has been caused. And throughout all of this, the most concerning thing is that our school administration has been doing very little to actually combat any of this. The most that has really been done is that our principal has put out a video which does not even get to doesn't mention any specific incidents, doesn't get to the root of the problem. Oftentimes it is teachers who have to go out and handle these situations when they occur, which is not their job in the first place. And meanwhile, security or school resource officers are currently not seen anywhere. And what's honestly concerning to me is that but generally when these situations do happen, very little is being done to actually, do any sort of punishment or to make sure that these incidents don't happen in the future. Honestly, and I've been going to Liberty for 4 years. This is the first year where I genuinely fear for my safety if I need to go use the bathroom or go outside or walk from one of the buildings to the other, going to and from class. I honestly, it's genuinely very concerning. There have been, and I'm not even the one that's being most heavily affected. There have even reports of boys going into the girls' bathrooms at the same time. My apologies. It's difficult for me to talk about, but my point is that I would hope that by having this conversation, I could bring to light some of these issues and hopefully some further action can be taken. That's all I really have to say. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Devlin. Next up is Aaron Davis.
So my name is Erin Davis and I represent the parents of Liberty class of 2025. So my son, Davis Decker, is a freshman this year at Liberty High School. And what the parents have been discussing together is some of the concerns that this last gentleman just voiced about fighting in the halls. Unfortunately, with social media, they're recorded. I actually went to, was in the Hillsboro School District and went from Brookwood Elementary to J.B. Thomas, which some of you may remember. It turned down to Hillsboro High School, and there were fights, but they didn't happen every week. And what I'm hearing from my son and his friends is that, they're occurring every week. They're in the hallways. People are recording them. And so, as this gentleman mentioned earlier, students are fearing for their safety. And they also, it's also not good encouraging behavior to have them recorded. And so if they, we can do whatever we can to make them stop. Obviously, I talked to my son about, how that's hurtful to other people and recording it and spreading it. But, I'm just one parent talking to my child. There's vaping in the bathroom. So my son actually has mentioned that he has to go to several bathrooms to find a bathroom that's available that doesn't have someone vaping in it. And obviously that's against the rules, but, and I did speak with with Principal Timmons this morning about the concerns. And he said, sometimes we catch the people doing it, sometimes we don't, but I also think that we, might need to provide some remediation for our students. So like, what should they do if they do find people vaping in the bathroom? Are they supposed to, obviously we don't want them going and interrupting their teachers while they're trying to teach an entire class, but, maybe there's a security officer that can be contacted to, follow up immediately. There's also no soap or towel dispensers in the bathrooms because, as you probably know, the TikTok trend about stealing those things, Mr. Timmons did assure me that they have been replaced, that he can find evidence of paper towels on the floor. So he knows that some of the paper towel dispensers are still there, but, especially with the pandemic and COVID, it's important that our kids are washing their hands. So that's concerning. Probably the most two concerning things though is kids being allowed to roam the halls while they're supposed to be in class. And then some kids in class with, for example, with my son who aren't enrolled in the class, but they just are choosing not to go to the class they're supposed to go to. And what I've been told is that the teachers aren't supposed to confront the person, that they're supposed to, what is happening is the person or the teacher says, well, if you're not supposed to be in this class, then you should go to the class that you're supposed to be in. So just really quick, they've hired 3 security staff. They are enforcing kind of the 2020 rule, but the parents want to know what we can do, if we can, volunteer to help out in the school. How are we measuring improvement with this problem? So, I understand there's actions being taken. I think hiring 3 security guards and reinforcing some behavior is good, but I don't think that that's going to be enough. And when can we see measured improvement and maybe further action? Thank you.
Thank you, Erin. We did have 4 individuals who submitted information online for the board's review, and just wanted to see, in collaboration with Rose here, if any of those folks would like the opportunity to be elevated to speaker mode and go ahead and address the board directly. First one would be Matt Raby. Is he online, Rose? Okay.
Good evening, and thank you for this opportunity to speak. I will use my time to say my sentiments reflect those of the 2 speakers who have previously voiced their concerns about the safety and the academic challenges at Liberty High School. The rest of my comments are in front of you in written form. Thank you.
The next person who submitted a comment, her name is Patty. She did not provide a last name, P-A-T-T-I. Is she online? No. Okay, the next person is Delina Soon. Is she online? Delina, would you like to address the board directly? Is she unmuting? No. Okay. If you change your mind, please, can she make a reaction or something so that you know? Or okay. All right. And then the final person is Aaron. Oh, Aaron, you were here. So sorry. Yes. Yes. No, that's great. Covering the bases, that's more than okay. So board members, I would invite you to review the comments that were submitted to you electronically and take those into consideration along with the folks who addressed you here. Thank you.
All right, thank you all for coming, and Devlin, once again, thank you for your service on the board. Mike wanted to jump in here real quick.
Yeah, and we typically don't do a big response when we hear audience comment time. It isn't really the place for a debate, but I do want to let you know that we are aware of these concerns, and we have had increased behavior incidents at all of our high schools. So that's not supposed to make you feel better, might make you feel worse. But we have seen an increase in behavior since we returned from the pandemic, and the behaviors that we're experiencing now are different than they were pre-pandemic, to be honest. We know that our students have experienced trauma. They haven't socialized in the same way. They haven't been in school on a regular basis for a long time. So we are seeing increased incidents here. We are working to problem solve with the principals of our high schools. So please don't think that this goes ignored or that we're just nodding our heads to get this to go away. That is definitely not the case. We are problem solving around this. I think Erin mentioned that we have hired an additional security person for each of our high schools, and we'll continue to increase resources and address behavior to get a handle on this. So appreciate the concerns. Thank you.
Our next agenda item would be the consent agenda. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move that we approve the consent agenda as printed. Second.
It's been moved by Director Allen and seconded by Director Kim that we approve the consent agenda as printed. Is there any discussion? All in favor of support of the motion will say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Consent agenda is approved. we've been working on the language for this next action item a little bit. The for those of you who remember Director Martin Granum, he proposed that we sort of acknowledge and call out when people make donations to the district over $5,000 because it's kind of noteworthy and we appreciate it very much. So what we figured out legally is that as long as it's in the consent agenda, what we can do is call these acknowledgements. So do I have a motion to acknowledge the gifts this particular time? Oh, wait, Michelle, usually you give us a little description, right? Sorry.
Is this on? Yes. My training earlier paid off. So thank you. Yeah. So we would, our policy reads that we would bring anything over $5,000 to be accepted by the board. And so this month, actually, it actually occurred in October, but we report on the following month. We had a donation of $15,000 from the Renaissance Charitable Foundation to Lennox Elementary School for general education, and then another donation of $5,000 from the Witch Hazel PTA to Witch Hazel Elementary School for water fountains. So we're putting those forward to the board tonight.
Does anybody have any questions for Michelle? Would anybody like to make a motion?
I move that the Board of Directors acknowledge the donation of $15,000 from Renaissance Charitable Foundation to Lennox Elementary School for general education, and the donation of $5,000 from Witch Hazel PTA to Witch Hazel Elementary for water fountain.
I second.
Okay, it's been moved by Director Lopez and seconded by Director Allen that the Board of Directors acknowledge the donation of $15,000 from Renaissance Charitable Foundation to Lennox Elementary School for general education, and the donation of $5,000 from Witch Hazel PTA to Witch Hazel Elementary for water fountains. Is there any further discussion?
I just want to take a moment to acknowledge and thank the PTA. That's always an important thing, and the fact that they came up with that much money to dedicate for water fountains needs to be acknowledged. So thank you. If there's anyone out there, we appreciate it.
Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
All right, our next agenda item involves positions on the Oregon School Boards Association board and the Legislative Policy Committee. There are 5 separate motions we need to entertain. Everybody has to be handled individually. So well, we will have, so at least it's at the end. We will have to do some discussion regarding position 20 on the Legislative Policy Committee, but I think we can get through the other ones first. So would anybody like to make a motion on OSBA Board of Directors position 15?
I move that the Board of Directors cast its vote for Susan Greenberg for the OSBA Board of Directors position 15. Second.
It's been moved by Director Allen and seconded by Director Lopez that the Board of Directors cast its vote for Susan Greenberg for the Oregon School Boards Association Board of Directors position 15. Is there any discussion? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Opposed?
Motion carries. All right, next up, Legislative Policy Committee position 15.
I move that the Board of Directors cast its vote for Mark Watson for the OSBA Legislative Policy Committee position 15.
Second.
It's been moved by Director Allen and seconded by Director Kim that the Hillsboro School Board of Directors cast its vote for Mark Watson for the OSBA Legislative Policy Committee position 15. For what it's worth, that's me. Is there any discussion?
I just want to publicly thank you again. A very large time commitment, and it's really important. appreciate you keeping us apprised of things that are happening. Our community in this really important day.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Opposed?
Motion passes. Next up is Legislative Policy Committee Position 16.
I move that the Board of Directors cast its vote for Becky Timchuk for the OSBA Legislative Policy Committee, position 16. I'll second.
It has been moved by Director Lopez and seconded by Director Allen that the Board of Directors cast its vote for Becky Timchuk for the OSBA Legislative Policy Committee, position 16. Is there any discussion? I would just add that Director Timchuk has been on this committee for quite a while and also has given countless hours to this endeavor, and I appreciate her efforts on that front. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed?
Opposed?
Motion carries. Next up, Oregon School Board Association Board of Directors, position 20. And I would move that the Board of Directors cast its vote for Erica Lopez for the OSBA Board of Directors, position 20.
Second.
Been moved by Director Watson. We're doing the third person. Is that how I have to do it? All right. It's been moved by Director Watson and seconded by Director Kim that the Board of Directors cast its vote for Erica Lopez for the OSBA Board of Directors, position 20. Is there any discussion?
I would just like to publicly thank you for being willing to continue to serve in this really important role, Erica. I don't know if everyone knows the amount of time that Erica has invested in OSBA in order to bring us more into the sphere that will serve all the students across Oregon in the way that they deserve. And I know exactly how much time that has taken and the toll that it can take to make progress in that way and move the dial. And I really, really appreciate it. And I'm thankful that you're willing to continue to be our voice at the table for all of the students in Hillsboro and across the state. So thank you, Erica.
Any other discussion?
I'd also like to say publicly that it is so important that a board of our level, we're number 4, I guess, of the big 4 of the districts, and it is nice to have people who are willing to volunteer so that our voice is heard in OSBA. It's just important, and we appreciate you, Erica. We appreciate you, Mark, and we hope that some of us are going to be learning behind you so that we can step up and do the same thing at the appointed time. So thank you so much, and I just wanted everybody to know that it's important that we have this representation.
Any further discussion? All right, I'll just add to, yes, Erica, thank you for the countless hours you've done to make our community better. For those who don't know, maybe out there listening, we throw acronyms around quite frequently. The OSBA is the Oregon School Boards Association, and it's the group that really does an amazing job of representing all 197 school districts in Oregon, both legislatively and providing training and guidance and legal advice and opportunities for us to learn and become better board members. And in my experience, on the Legislative Policy Committee, when we were able to gather in person, we'd sit at tables with people from Madras or Baker or Portland or Beaverton or Hillsboro, and any agenda you might think somebody had was checked at the door, and people are just trying to do what's best for students. And I really appreciate the work that the Oregon School Board Association does. And Erica, thank you for being willing to take on a leadership role with that group. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed?
Opposed?
Motion carries. All right. The last one is messier. There's not just one person interested in serving in the Legislative Policy Committee, position number 20. There are 2 board members, not in our district, but in other districts, one from Gaston, TJ Johnson, and one from Tualatin Tigard, Marvin Lynn, that have expressed interest. So I'm open to ideas on how we want to figure out as a board, we will cast our vote for one of those candidates. And I don't know how many opportunities you've all have had to interact with either of the candidates. I think I've had a chance to meet both and talk to both before, so I'm open to discussion on how we would like to determine which board member for whom we'd like to cast our vote.
I would like to share with the board that I have had interaction with two of the candidates as well. And it is difficult to make a decision like this when you've never met them or have never interacted with them. I acknowledge that. However, sometimes you have to make a decision based on the fact that someone is willing to put in the time, put in the effort, and to represent us. So I urge everyone to do the hard thing and let's see if we can make a decision. But I think that it's important that we at least try to make an effort to vote for these folks. I realize that we have a short period of time in which to do this. Is that correct?
We have to pick one of these two candidates for position 20 tonight.
That is correct. So we have to make a decision tonight.
Director Allen?
Do you know why folks are currently
Oh, I don't think they are. No, I don't. I know Dr. Lynn is a new board member. I think
TJ is not. Neither of these two candidates are incumbents.
yeah. Okay.
Newly elected, I believe.
Yeah, I think both were newly elected, and it's amazing they chose to put their names forward for a bunch of extra work. Sure.
I guess I just had a question about our process for this. Do we want to make a motion or do we want to have a discussion?
Yeah, I'm happy to. Well, I feel like we're in discussion time now, and that's kind of what if we think we can figure out for whom we'd like to cast our vote through discussion, that's fine. If we'd like to make a motion for one of them and then discuss that, that's fine with me too.
I would just want to add, just for a little bit of context, since I think most of you had not had a chance to interact with either of them. I know that TJ has been serving for a little while on Gaston, actually no, that I was thinking it was Bank. But what I do have experience is working with Dr. Marvin Lynn. He has been a trainer actually for Oregon School Board Association and has been engaged in education and for a long time. So I know that this is probably a different arena for him on the legislative side, but I think he just has a wealth of knowledge and experience. And one of the things that we're trying to connect with OSBA is how to connect K through 12 to the higher ed lens. And I think that Dr. Marvin Lynn could bring a lot of that information and expertise for us on the legislative policy committee. So just wanted to bring that up.
Dr. Allen?
I just had a quick question. In terms of the size of the districts, how is Gaston's district size comparable to Tiger's Wallet?
Oh, I'm sure the intern or the internet could tell us.
Yes,
Oh,
I just looked it up. So Gaston has 540 students. And Tiger College has 12,625 students, according to the internet. And so I was going to say that I think that
Chair Watson, I would like to make a motion that we cast our vote for Dr. Marvin Lynn, if that's appropriate at this time.
okay.
Second.
It has been moved that the board of directors cast its vote for Marvin Lynn for the OSBA Legislative Policy Committee position 20. Is there any further discussion? All right, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Opposed?
Motion carries. You'll do all of the required paperwork. Right. All right. Thank you, everybody. I knew that one was going to be a little bit, and I appreciate the thoughtful consideration everyone had there. Our next action item is to appoint the members to the Budget Committee. Michelle, do you have anything to add from upstairs? No? So during our work session today, we discussed the vacancies available on the Budget Committee. We have 3 applicants. We have 3 positions. So that kind of worked out well. We've been fortunate lately to have many people be interested in serving in on our committees, and that we continue to be have that richness of people who want to be involved in the district. So no, that's not. That's just me pulling this up away. I would entertain a motion. Do we do all in one motion or 3 separate motions? Okay.
And do we know which one is for what position? Do we have that written?
Position 7 is the position that Alexander Flores has been appointed, will be appointed to. That's, at least that's how we voted upstairs.
Positions 3 and 4. Position 4 was the one that Christine Wanberg had completed, and then it expired. And since she has kind of reapplied incumbent, I would recommend that she remains in position 4 if that's approved by the board.
Chair Watson, I'd like to ask that we entertain each vote individually so as not to confuse ourselves.
Oh, okay. Would somebody like to make a motion? It's on page 34 of the packet or in the agenda. No, it's not. Yeah.
I move that the Board of Directors appoint the slate of candidates identified during the work session to the 3 vacant positions on the Budget Committee as follows. Sarah Parson to position 3, which expires June 30th, 2024. Christine Adams Wamberg to position 4, which expires on June 30th, 2024. Alexander Flores to position 7, which expires on June 30th, 2022.
I second.
All right. I will probably need the names again. Yep. It's been moved by Director Lopez and seconded by Director Thomas. Is that right? Okay. That the board of directors appoint the slate of candidates identified during the work session to the 3 vacant positions on the Budget Committee as follows. Appoint Sarah Parsons to position 3, which expires on June 30th, 2024. Appoint Christine Adams Wanberg to position 4, which expires on June 30th, 2024. And appoint Alexander Flores to position 7, which expires on June 30th, 2022. Is there any further discussion on that motion?
Just a thank you to our community for continuing to participate and engage in our different committees.
Yes, thank you. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
And if any of you are still listening home, thank you again for your service, and we look forward to sitting around the table upstairs with you sometime soon. Maybe not that soon. Springtime. All right. Our next agenda item is the OSAA collective sponsorship application. I believe Casey has some information to share with us.
Okay, thank you. No.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, thank you. The OSA collective sponsorship application for Liberty High School and Hillsboro High School swimming. This is an uncommon occurrence in our district. However, the circumstances to meet the criteria of the Oregon School Activity Association is applicable to combine resources in this circumstance. Liberty High School has really had a hard time struggling to find a swim coach for this season. And the OSA allows in certain sports schools to be a collective, which means they can combine and practice and utilize the resources together in order to have the students compete for their individual sport. Hillsboro High School, the swim program there, has offered to coach the LHS swimmers for the swim season. It also should be noted that all of our swim programs practice in the same pool, so it's not a huge issue for another program to absorb the Liberty High School swimmers. The swimmers, when they participate in competitions, will compete for Liberty High School, and the Hillsboro High School students will compete solely for Hillsboro High School as an individual sport. That's why this is a collective. Part of the process from the Oregon School Activity Association is that we bring this information to the board and seek board approval for the application to be approved at the state level. I've included some information about the collective process and who may apply. I will say that all of the circumstances outlined do meet the qualifications to move this forward. Just need to bring it to the board for a formal approval should you follow our lead and want to accept the collective for these two programs. I'm happy to answer any questions.
One quick question. Does this have any potential impact for the swim meets themselves? So will the two schools be competing against each other, or they be two different locations where they need a coach present?
Yeah, that could occur. All of our home meets take place at the same pool. What will happen though, if we do have to go to a separate venue, is somebody from Liberty, like the athletic director or somebody like that, will go to oversee and represent the students. The programs will compete separately, even if the two programs are in a duel. So if Liberty High School is versus Hillsboro High School in a dual meet, since it's an individual sport, the individual students will basically compete for their home school, even though there may be only the Hillsboro High School coaches overseeing them.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Casey? All right. I would entertain a motion. I think it's on page 35.
I move that the Board of Directors approve the collective sponsorship act.
Second.
It has been moved by Director Kim and seconded by Director Ward that the Board of Directors approve the collective sponsorship application. Is there any further discussion? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The motion carries. That ends our action items. And for hopefully everyone at home and people who can see us here, we've been having quite a bit of feedback from folks online about how difficult it is to hear the board during board meetings. So you'll see us going to some extra links to try to use the microphones as effectively as possible. It may look a little silly, but hopefully it ends up being effective for what it's worth. All right. Reports and discussions. Michelle has the financial report. Is there anything you want to highlight for us?
Not this month. I just continue to be humbled and super honored to bring you guys a narrative about the works of the business office and what's going on. And of course, happy to answer any questions you might have about the information that was presented in the packet.
Any questions for Michelle? The packet's a publicly available document. I hope everybody reads all, it's only 60 pages this week, not too bad. But they highlighted a couple of improvements systemically that the department's trying to make, and I thank you for including those, and thank you for always looking for ways to improve.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is our policies for first reading. Mike?
All right, thank you. Each quarter we get information from OSBA, which would indicate the board policies that are up for review. You'll recall that recently we went through a thorough process to renew all of our policies. Still though, each quarter we get recommendations for keeping those current. What you see here is the first batch of this last quarter that we're bringing to you. You can see on your agenda that we have different cabinet members' names attached to each of these policies should you have any questions. My recommendation this evening is that these would go on 30-day review.
I already asked a few questions online or in email. Thank you to everyone for responding to that. Appreciate it. My guess is, maybe Rose, you can clarify, most of this is legal. So since we've done everything pretty thoroughly recently, it's probably changes from the last legislative session or whatever. Yeah, so it's just OSBA updating legal language. Gotcha. Does anybody have any questions that they would like to bring up now? Or you can always email, like Mike said, any kind of cabinet member who's got any. All right. Thank you, Mike. Wow, we are whizzing along. 10 to 8. All right, sorry, voice got real high there because I'm kind of excited. All right, we are to reports, HCU and HEA. I think Jill is here. Melody, is Melody available online? Okay, Melody, how about you go first?
Okay, can you hear me?
Since
Can
we
you hear
have
me?
you, yes, we can hear you.
Okay.
And since we have you, can you hear us for a change? Apparently, it's been hard for people to hear us.
Oh, I can hear you clear.
Excellent.
It's hard to see who's talking when you're talking, but I can hear you. So,
Thank you,
okay.
Melody. Go ahead.
Okay, so good evening. I would like to start off tonight by letting all the staff of HSD know that HCU appreciates everyone, and I hope that everyone has a great American Education Week. Our next bargaining session will be on December 3rd. The last session, the district gave us a financial proposal. We, as the bargaining team, will be coming up with a counter proposal soon. There is work to be done to achieve a fair financial agreement targeted to the market and demand. Our membership is growing, and we are listening to what our members are saying. One goal for our bargaining team is for our classified employees to have the stability of growth, wages, and benefits. In order for our district to be the employer that people want to work for, the employees must be valued, and part of being valued is being paid a livable wage. And with the passing of the new infrastructure bill, it may ease some of the financial burden of the district of achieving these goals. We as a district need to do something about recruiting new employees and to keep the ones that we have. We are not sure what the solution is at this point, but we are working with the district both in and outside of bargaining. And we need to think outside of the box to come up with a solution. HSD needs to be the district that people want to work in. And we hope that everyone has a great holiday next week. And thank you. And for our teachers, we hope that all the conferences go smoothly. Thank you and good night.
Thank you, Melody. Jill is here with us. I don't know if that microphone works. Do it work now?
Like this, like right here. Okay. I can do it. All right. Good evening, Chair Watson, Vice Chair Thomas, fellow board members, and Superintendent Scott. Tonight, I'd like to begin by recognizing that this week, this helps. Hold on. Okay. Tonight, I'd like to begin by recognizing that this week is American Education Week, a week to celebrate public education and honor the individuals working to ensure that every student receives a quality education. And today was Family Day. And on behalf of the HEA teachers, I'd like to say thank you to all of our parents. Thank you for all that you do, for reading to your children, for checking homework every night, limiting television viewing or screen time on school nights, for developing a relationship with your child's teacher, and simply asking children about their school day. Your involvement is vital, and we appreciate and value your volunteerism and your support. And tomorrow, the 17th, is Education Support Professionals Day. And as you know, transitioning back to in-person learning has had its challenges, but our classified teaching partners have been there for us and the students every step of the way. They keep us safe by cleaning and repairing buildings. They navigate multiple bus routes amid staffing shortages, and they work alongside us addressing social and emotional impacts of the pandemic. So to our classified partners, thank you, thank you, thank you. You are amazing. You make our jobs possible, and we cannot do this work without you. I want to give a quick bargaining update. The HSD and HEA bargaining teams met last Tuesday, November 9th. We are still introducing new articles, and also have begun to present counter proposals. Our next session will take place from 2:30 to 6 on Tuesday, November 30th. And our sessions are live streamed for our members who want to watch. So now I want to talk a little bit about what I shared last month. I shared some of the challenges that licensed staff are facing in their jobs this year. This past month, we surveyed licensed staff to get a quantitative and qualitative read of our membership. The data I emailed to you earlier tonight are just a few highlights to underscore what teachers and other educators are experiencing this year. Our students have higher needs post-pandemic, and a concerning number of staff are considering either leaving the profession, resigning, or retiring early. While we are not surprised to learn these facts, we are hopeful that the data will support our efforts to find relief for our licensed staff. Thank you for listening and for the solutions in mind as I share some highlights of this survey. We asked all of our members to take the survey. We had 2/3 of our members, about 66% of the 1,225 unit members took the survey. And 90% of those who took this survey were teachers prior to COVID. 90% of them, our teachers that took the survey, said stress this year is more than ever. 92% said they just can't get their work done inside the contractual day. 91% reported considerable to extreme stress. 21% are considering taking a leave. 20% are considering resigning, which is approximately 150 of the folks that took the survey. Or they're considering, 28% are considering retiring sooner than they planned. Members said that the top 4 items are areas that need to be addressed are the lack of supports, staff supports, social and emotional needs of students post-pandemic, and often these needs become a safety concern. Time it takes to support students during quarantine to catch them up upon returning, and of course the impact of sub shortage. I appreciate the opportunity to share this valuable and concerning information. Our students have many needs that require time and attention, and our staff need the time and resources to meet those needs. I look forward to partnering with all of you and the admin team to find solutions during this challenging time. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. We will begin discussion time with our students. Have you guys decided who wants to go first? All right. What's that?
All right.
Yeah, if you push the button, it turns it off.
Wait, do I have to click? Oh.
No, this button. If you push, yeah, just bring it up close and do the best.
Oh my gosh. Okay, sorry. So over the past weeks, I've heard from students and teachers from various schools in the district, especially in the high school level, people including students, parents, and staff just don't feel safe. And I recognize that this is a global issue and that these events aren't happening in isolation, but regardless, I think that it's important to address, as like some people here have also addressed. And there has been an increasing amount of fighting, vandalism, drug use, bullying, harassment, and racism. And a lot of this has been in part because of the trauma of the pandemic and the shadow pandemic, which is a term to describe the growing rates of violence against women and children because of the COVID-19 pandemic. However, some people feel as if there is a lack of accountability for both students and staff. Many are feeling frustrated that they can't confront these issues, whether it's like students confronting students or staff confronting students. They just don't feel like they're empowered. And then people don't feel heard or seen. And many just want an open space to express themselves and to express their feelings towards these things, but they just feel like their thoughts are being pushed under the rug. I have 2 comments here that like people wanted me to read out loud. So one was from a senior that said, and I quote, "They say things will be done, but they never will. They tell us it's our fault and our problem to fix when it's not our problem to fix. School is not a safe place because everything is pushed under the rug." And then a teacher said, "There is a need for actual policies and consequences for the unsafe culture we are accumulating at the school. And I'd like to think that the administrators have a plan for us, but so far with the lack of security staff, as well as many other obstacles, I'm just not sure whether or if we will get those answers. As a staff, from what I've seen and heard, most of all of us seem to be united and wanting there to be action, yet we have not received guidance nor support from the upper levels to enact any sort of real change. And so we find ourselves sitting in the same place of frustration and confusion as our students.
And then, oh, trying to figure out the right distance. I think I've got it. I'd just like to reiterate, I understand that Mike was saying earlier that the board is aware of this and that actions are being taken throughout the school, but I think it's just important, and that's the reason that we're saying this twice. We have been hearing constantly from students, including many from Liberty, but also from other schools, who just do not feel safe when they go to school. Safety is one of the top student concerns that we are hearing from our peers around us right now. Um, the similar complaints of discrimination, of racist incidents, of vandalism, of violence happening within our halls. And to even speak from my own experience, there's a student at Glencoe High School who walks around wearing a 3%er patch on his backpack. This is the environment that we've all come back to school in, and it's concerning us. And the board has said that it's acting on it, and I'm glad to hear that because it's clear that this is a concern based off all the people who came to speak up for themselves today, which I'm incredibly grateful for and proud of. Thank you for coming to share your concerns with us. For this to feel meaningful, for us to feel better about going back to school, I think that we need to have more communication from administration and from the district about what actions they are actually taking. It seems like the common frustration I've heard repeated when people have been sharing their statements with us has been that they don't see action. They don't see the effect of what they're trying to do. They aren't aware of what steps are being taken, and that they feel like administration in the district aren't communicating well with them, which is, I think, a symptom of something larger that happens within our district. Students have not been the focus of communication or feedback for a while. It's something that I think that this board is trying to change, but I think that this is an example that draws to mind the greater problem of students feeling out of the loop. And I think that we really need to carry that with us, both with this specific example and going forward throughout the rest of the year, because this isn't the only scenario where people feel this way. It's just that it is immediate. And in this case, it concerns their physical safety in many cases. So that would be my urge for the district and the board in this moment, is to make sure that we are communicating what we are doing, that we are spreading this awareness, and that it's not just administration things that are happening inside of a black box. I understand that this might not be directly board business, but we felt that it was important to use our platform at this meeting to be able to share this message that we are hearing from so many students.
Thank you. And I also wanted to just thank all the parents and families that came out here today and discuss their concerns, especially for safety, because I know that that is something that everybody takes very seriously. And I know that this is a very difficult time for everybody. Like we heard, it's not only students, it's also staff and it's also families. And this isn't something that anybody has ever dealt with before because, you know, we've never been in the middle of a pandemic, but I know that I trust the board, I trust families, and I trust HSD to really make a change and make things better for everybody. And I know that they're gonna work very, very hard, and we're all gonna work to be better and to do better and um, just make everybody feel safe again. Um, I just want to say thank you to the amazing board members that we have. Um, you guys have been working long hours, and I just wanted to acknowledge all of you guys and all your hard work that you're putting into the board. Um, and that's it. Thank you so much to everybody who came out, who spoke, and our amazing board members.
All right, next up is, thank you guys. Next up is superintendent time.
All right, thank you. First of all, again, I just want to acknowledge the comments that were made this evening, and we are aware of the issue, and we are setting on a course of action here where we're going to be gathering additional information. As I mentioned before, the needs of our students have increased pretty significantly, and it is bearing out since our return to full-time for all of our students. We have an increase in the number of students that have reported abuse. We've got those socialization issues. We've got students that are off track academically to a higher percentage than we are comfortable with. We've got trauma resulting in behavior escalation, and we've got learning recovery to do. These are not unique to Hillsboro. It's still our problem to solve, but these are not unique to Hillsboro or this region. It's something that is being talked about across the entire nation. With that comes considerable staff fatigue. And we're currently in conversation with our bargaining units and to talk about how we can address that staff fatigue and how we can relieve some of the stress and some of the burden that is currently taking place. To that end, we're in conversation about should we repurpose some of our days? How do we generate time for staff to meet the needs of the students that they're serving? How do we remove some of those second tier responsibilities that maybe aren't as urgent as some of the other matters that I've mentioned here? How do we repurpose some of our existing staff to meet the needs that we're finding in our schools right at this moment? To that end, for over the next couple of weeks, we'll be going out into schools and doing some listening sessions with the staff. And we'll be doing that in groups of schools so that we can get those in a pretty expedient manner. I know HEA will also be reaching out to some board members to have conversations, so be expecting that. And after we have these conversations, it'll give us the opportunity to generate some ideas and to put some actions into place. In the meantime, we are having conversations and we are problem solving with our administrators, like I mentioned before. Know that the safety of the students is of utmost concern to us. And there's some very real issues when it comes to staffing, when it comes to getting enough adults in the system, just getting a ready workforce at this time. It's a challenge that we're all facing. So I want you to know that we've heard you, that we are working towards a solution. We find this urgent as well, and we'll look to move forward in a positive way. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Board of Directors time. I think we'll just stick with tradition and go from that way this way.
I think one of our audience members asked also what our parents could do, or what additional help we can provide. And one of the things I did wanted to call out and mention was that TSPC, which is a licensing agency that provides a license for teachers to be able to teach in the classroom, because we have such shortages of subs, they've lifted a restriction that you don't have to have that. You can have a bachelor's degree in any other area and still register to be able to sub in the classroom. So you still go through our background check and all that information, all the process in our district, but because we're dealing with a lot of shortages, this is an area where our community can also help us, is finding adults that care about education, that are hearing about the fatigue and the challenges that we're having. And it's not, a permanent solution, but it's something that we can help spread the word. We're also dealing with a lot of challenges in staffing. So if you can promote our hiring, our openings, we have a lot of positions in our district and we need people to fill those spots. So I just wanted to use my time to advocate for that, and also just to highlight seeing Kaylee at work and being out in the community. Now it's such a rewarding experience to be able to see our student reps, and also Devlin for coming. We didn't get to have you in person here as much as we would have wanted to last year, but I'm so thankful that you came back and still utilize your voice in the way that you did today. So thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I want to thank again the audience, excuse me, for coming to the board meeting this evening. Mike, I have a question about volunteers in the school. Would that help? I mean, that seems like that would help the teachers and alleviate some of this stress that they're feeling. What's the status of volunteers in the school?
We are welcoming volunteers back in schools now. That has already started to occur. Okay. So if that's something you're interested in, please contact your school.
Great, thank you. And I just want to wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving next week. Thank you.
I would echo what Erica shared, and what Mimi shared about subbing and volunteering. Both those things can be really useful, and also echo what Mike said about it. It's not necessarily a Hillsboro issue. We also have an abundance of these issues going on. It's throughout the state and I'm not sure what it is, but I keep hoping that people are going to get out of their system, and then everything will be normal. But I don't know. So we'll see. And also, happy American Education Week. I hope that people, that staff understand that we appreciate them, and um, say things and politicians kind of, but words are what we have, and so we're trying to use those words to say things. Very much. And I too hope everybody has a great Thanksgiving, and see everybody in December.
Well, thank you everyone for coming out. I know that many of the concerns that we've heard have tonight and even online has been about high school and safety in high school, but I've also been hearing concerns even at the middle school level. And so I think that these are things that we take seriously as a board as well as our administration. And I think one thing that could help is the communication piece and the transparency piece. And certainly, one thing that I would love to know as a board member is, what some of those resolutions or solutions that come out of these listening sessions would be. And I know, Mike, you had mentioned that we have some listening sessions with staff members. Is there a way to have listening session with students as well and hear directly from the students in terms of some of the issues directly, or even some of the solutions that they may, have proposals for? I would definitely be interested in hearing what their intake is. One of the other things in addition to this, the safety piece, is having that disconnect of students not knowing where to turn to or what resources are available to them. And I know that we as a district try to push out information through hot news and information through PACs and in different avenues, but I'm wondering if there's a more effective way to share with students directly some of the resources that they have at the tip of their fingers, whether that's utilizing advisory periods or home groups or something like that. I'd be interested to see if we can, if there's more that we can do. But again, thank you all for coming out. And Devlin, it is so good to see you. We've only seen you on a Zoom screen for a year. And so to see you in person is really wonderful. And again, happy American Education Week. Thank you.
Good evening to everyone. The thing that came to mind tonight, especially with the number of folks that spoke, and we truly appreciate you being here, is a perfect storm. And that's how I consider this. We have had a pandemic with unprecedented death and impact on all aspects of our lives. We are trying to reintegrate students who had been out for more than a year, in most cases, a year and a half plus. We have had teachers who were out for that same period of time. We are trying to support teachers at this point who have an increased workload because of the deficit to the students because of the pandemic. And they also have increased stress as they're trying to do all of the above. There is nothing simple about balancing students' needs and teachers' needs. There is no simple answer. But I do know that we must together find the answer. We have to support the teachers who mold, teach, and inspire the next generation. We also have to support the kids who are that next generation. I just wanted to say thank you to parents of Liberty High School, of which I am one. I am looking forward to having a conversation with Superintendent Scott to discuss what we're doing at all of our schools, and of course Liberty, because that is where my son is as well. I appreciate all the students and all the parents who have come here tonight. Your concerns are heard. And I want to acknowledge that your concerns are real. I have a saying in my day job: we have to protect the humans that deliver the human services. It goes the same for the teachers. It also goes the same for the students. We have a heavy job to do. It's going to take all of us collectively.
It's going to take a few more volunteers than what we're accustomed to. It's going to take a little bit more exposure than what we're accustomed to, but we can do this. Our children deserve it, we deserve it, and our community deserves it. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everybody, for coming out tonight. And thank you all for sort of sticking through it. Like, for what it's worth, oftentimes people will make their comment and then head for the door, which is perfectly fine. You would not be judged if you make your comment and head for the door. I'm just saying, it is kind of great to still see you here at the end of the night. So thank you all for coming out. And yes, we definitely appreciate you taking the time to reach out to us online, in person, any way that you can. If you see me walking my dog in the neighborhood, please come up and tell me what's happening in your school and in your life as well. Devlin, also want to thank you for seeing you here in person. Thank you for coming back and joining us tonight. The echoing the comments of everyone else here, yeah, it's not a Hillsboro specific issue, but to Mike's point, it is an issue that we have to figure out. It's national news, it's all over social media. It's everyone, whether it's your first year in education or your 30th, this is the hardest it's ever been. And I don't think it's just education. I think it's no matter where you work, no matter what you do, this is the hardest it's ever been. You know, I wasn't around 100 years ago when the last pandemic came around. So, I would say that you heard Superintendent Scott discuss some of the things that the administration is considering, and I would say that the board has been advocating, talking to staff quite a bit about how we can creatively think outside the box to remain compliant with our collective bargaining agreements and compliant with the ODE law to find ways to improve the system or improve the situation. So for what it's worth, the board has been actively engaging with the administrative team to try to, find a creative solution that, won't violate our collective bargaining agreement, but also finds a way to try to make things even just a little bit better, because it's even just a little bit better would be good right now. Happy Education Week. I think Beth would probably know better than me, but I'm pretty sure that this was the first time I missed the apple baskets. I think in my